The lights in the grand ballroom dimmed just enough for the spotlight to feel like a blade. 200 faces frozen mid-laugh, mid-clap, mid-sip of champagne. The string quartet had stopped playing halfway through the chord. My gift, the small velvet box ID, wrapped myself at 3 in the morning because I wanted it perfect sat open on the table between us. Inside, the antique pocket watch my grandfather carried through 2 wars, the one thing ID kept when everything else was sold. ID told her it represented time we'd built together. She picked it up between 2 manicured fingers like it might stain her white silk gloves. Then she laughed, not a polite titter, a full, ringing laugh that echoed off the crystal chandeliers. "Oh, honey," she said, loud enough for the back tables to hear, "did you really think this little trinket was going to impress anyone here?" We spent more on the napkins.
It's an heirloom, Tori.
The room exhaled in uncomfortable silence. Then someone, her cousin, I think, snorted, and the laughter spread like fire through dry grass. I stood there in my rented tuxedo that pinched at the shoulders, smile still glued to my face because I de-practiced it in the mirror for weeks. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything vital and left the shell. But I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just reached over, gently closed the box, and said, very quietly, "You're right. It's not much." Then I turned to the crowd, raised my glass, and toasted her beauty, her family, our future. They clapped again, relieved the awkwardness had passed. She beamed, thinking she'd won the moment. She had no idea ID already started winning the war.
You could get away with this.
My name is Daniel
Tori,
Hayes.
stop this.
I'm 38 now.
Not tonight, Daniel.
Back
Not
then,
tonight.
I was 33, a mid-level financial analyst at a boutique investment firm downtown. The kind of job that paid enough to keep the lights on, but never enough to touch the world she came from. I'd grown up in a small town 2 hours north, parents who worked double shifts so I could be the first to go to college. Scholarships, night classes, ramen for dinner most nights. I met Victoria, everyone called her Tori, at a charity gala I was only invited to because my boss needed someone to carry his briefcase. She was radiant, sharp, ambitious. She laughed at my jokes, touched my arm when she spoke, and for the first time in my life I felt like I belonged somewhere expensive. We dated for 18 months. I proposed with a ring ID, saved 2 years from she said yes in front of her parents' marble fireplace. The wedding was her vision, 5-star venue, custom dress imported from Milan, open bar with top-shelf everything. I said yes to all of it because I loved her, and because I thought love meant stretching until you snapped. That night, after the laughter died and the guests drifted to the dance floor, I slipped outside to the garden terrace. The air was cool, smelling of roses and city exhaust. I leaned against the stone railing, stared at the skyline, and felt something shift inside me, not anger yet, but clarity. Cold, precise clarity. ID spent years trying to prove I was enough. That night she proved I never would be. So I decided to stop trying. I didn't storm off. I didn't confront her. I went back inside, danced with her aunt, laughed at her father's golf stories, kissed her cheek when she asked where I'd gone. I played the perfect groom until the last guest left. Then the real work began. It started small, very small. The next morning, while she slept off the champagne in our honeymoon suite, I sat at the hotel desk with my laptop. I opened the joint account we'd set up for wedding expenses, the one her parents had generously seeded with, $50,000 to help us get started. Most of it was already gone. Florist, photographer, the dress alterations she'd insisted on 3 times. But there was still enough left for what I needed. I transferred the remainder every last cent into a separate savings account in my name only. Not stealing, exactly. We'd agreed the leftover would go toward our first home. I just made sure the home would be mine alone. Then I started listening. Really listening. Tori talked constantly about money. Not in a greedy way, at least not then, but in the casual way people do when they've never been without it. She'd say things like, well, need the lake house for summers, or I can't possibly drive anything less than a Mercedes. I'd nod, smile, file it away. She had no idea how much those words cost me in pride. Over the next few months, she pushed for more. A bigger apartment in a better zip code. Designer furniture. Vacations she saw on Instagram. I kept saying yes, but I was already building the trap. See, I'd always been good with numbers. Too good. While she shopped, I researched, quietly. I learned about leveraged investments, margin accounts, high-risk ventures that promised quick returns but carried ruin if they failed. I opened accounts in both our names because she trusted me with the finances. You're the numbers guy, babe. I made sure every risky move looked legitimate on paper. I encouraged her spending. Not obviously. Subtly. You deserve the best dress, I'd say, when she hesitated over a $10,000 gown. Let's do the destination wedding photos in Santorini, even though we were already over budget. She loved that I was finally on board with her lifestyle. She posted about it constantly, hashtag, living our best life, hashtag, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes. Meanwhile, I funneled our joint income into those high-risk positions. Small at first, then larger. I used her credit card's ID, co-signed for business expenses that were really margin calls. When the market dipped, I didn't sell. I doubled down. I told her the dips were normal, temporary. She believed me because she wanted to believe the life we were building was real. 2 years in, the first crack appeared. One of her favorite boutiques called about an overdue bill. She laughed it off, handed me the phone. I paid it from our joint account, but I made sure she saw the balance drop. She frowned for maybe 10 seconds, then shrugged. Well, make more next quarter. We didn't. 3 years in, the market turned ugly. My positions tanked. I didn't panic. I let them tank. Margin calls started coming. I answered them by borrowing more home equity line we'd opened just in case. Credit cards maxed, personal loans in both names. I kept the statements rooted to my email. She never checked. She started asking questions around year 4. Why is the credit card bill so high? I'd show her the statement's carefully edited screenshots. San blame inflation, unexpected repairs, her medical spa treatments. She bought it because confronting it would mean admitting the fairy tale was crumbling. By year 5, we were drowning. The apartment lease was up. We couldn't afford to renew. Her parents had stopped the monthly allowance they'd given her since college. She cried one night, said she felt like a failure. I held her, told her we'd figure it out together. I meant it in a way she didn't understand. Then came the final move. I'd been building a separate life in parallel. A small condo in my name only, paid in cash from an inheritance ID. Never told her about my grandfather's watch. Wasn't the only thing had left me. A new job at a rival firm. Higher salary, no joint accounts. Friends who were mine, not ours. The day the bankruptcy notice arrived, to dress to both of us, I sat her down at our dining table. The same table she'd chosen because it was timeless. I laid out the papers, every debt, every maxed card, every failed investment. Her eyes went wide, then glassy. But you handled everything, she whispered. I did, I said softly, and you trusted me. She stared at the numbers like they were in another language. Then she looked at me, really looked, and saw the man Shed laughed at 5 years earlier. The one Shed called poor in front of everyone we knew. I didn't yell, I didn't gloat. I just said, I kept the watch. You can have the dress. She wore that same dress the day the marshals came to repossess the furniture. White silk against the bare walls. Mascara tracks down her cheeks. Alone in an empty apartment that used to be ours. I walked away with nothing flashy, just freedom, and the quiet satisfaction that Shed finally understood what poor really felt like. But revenge, it doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like ash, because I lost pieces of myself building that cage around her. Pieces ill never get back. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear her laugh from that ballroom. It never quite stops echoing. I didn't wake up the morning after the wedding and decide to destroy her life. That would be too clean, too cinematic. No, what happened was slower, colder, more like frost creeping across a window pane until you can't see through it anymore.
It's an heirloom,
I went
Tori.
back to work
The
on
last thing I
Monday
have.
like nothing had changed. Same cubicle, same flickering fluorescent light, same coffee that tasted like regret even before you drank it. My boss asked how the honeymoon was. I told him we'd postponed it, some last-minute work thing came up. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Smart man, keep grinding." I smiled. Inside, I was already calculating compound interest on something much darker than a 401k. The first real step wasn't dramatic. It was boring. Numbers on a screen. I opened a brokerage account in my name only, linked it to the small checking account. I'd kept secret since college, the one I used to squirrel away birthday cash from my mum before she passed. There wasn't much in it. Maybe 7,000 after I sold the last of my childhood baseball
You could get
cards.
away with this.
But it was mine,
Tori,
untouched
stop
by her
this.
world.
Not tonight,
I started
Daniel.
reading,
Not tonight.
not self-help books or revenge manuals, financial filings, SEC reports, message boards where day traders argued in broken English about margin and leverage and how close you could dance to the edge before the floor gave way. I learned the language of ruin the way some people learn poetry lightly, obsessively. Late at night while she slept beside me, smelling of expensive lotion and other people's compliments. Every time she came home with another shopping bag. Every time she sighed about how our apartment was cute but temporary. I added another layer to the plan. I never wrote it down. Nothing on paper, nothing in notes apps, nothing searchable. It lived in my head like a second heartbeat. I encouraged her to keep her own credit cards active. You should have the freedom to treat yourself, babe, I'd say while she scrolled through designer sites on the couch. She loved that I'd finally gotten on board. She'd kiss me, post a photo of whatever arrived in the mail, tag the brand, tag me, hashtag blessed, hashtag Mrs. Hayes, hashtag living large. Every like felt like another brick in the wall I was building around her. Around month 8, I started the real movement. I suggested we open a joint investment account for our future, I said. She rolled her eyes playfully. You and your spreadsheets. But she signed. I made sure the risk tolerance form listed us both as aggressive. She didn't read the fine print. Why would she? She trusted me with the boring parts. I didn't dump everything into one stock. That's how you get caught. I spread it. Small cap biotech with one promising drug in phase 3. A lithium mining play tied to electric cars. A couple of SPACs that sounded futuristic. I told her the portfolio was diversified, balanced, boring. She never asked for the login. When the first gains came in 30% in 3 months, she squealed and booked us a weekend at a bed and breakfast she'd seen in a magazine. I let her. I even paid for it from the joint account. But I was already moving the profits out slow drips into the separate brokerage, disguised as withdrawal for home down payment research. She started talking about kids around then. Maybe next year, she said one night, curled against me, a little haze running around. I kissed her forehead and said, soon. I didn't tell her the math didn't work anymore. The lifestyle she demanded was eating faster than we earned. The only thing growing was the debt I was quietly feeding. Year 2, the cracks started showing in ways only I could see. One of her cards got declined at lunch with her friends. She laughed it off on the phone with me later. They must have had a glitch. I transferred money from the joint savings to cover it, but I made sure the transfer showed up on the statement. She glanced at it once, frowned, then closed the app. We'll talk about it later, she said. We never did. I kept feeding the machine. More margin, more leverage. I'd sit in the guest room at 2 a.m, blue light on my face, watching positions swing. When they dropped, I bought more. When they rose, I let them ride. I was building a tower of cards so tall she couldn't see the base anymore. She never suspected because I never changed. I still brought her coffee in bed on Saturdays. I still listened when she vented about her mother's passive-aggressive comments. I still told her she was beautiful, even when her eyes were puffy from crying about some influencer drama. I became the perfect husband in every visible way. That was the cruelest part, I think. She felt safe, loved, secure. And all the while I was counting down. By year 3 the portfolio was red deep. Red, but the statements still came to my inbox first. I doctored the PDFs before forwarding them, trimmed the losses, inflated the gains, just enough to keep her comfortable. She stopped asking to see them. You're so good at this stuff, she'd say, waving her hand like it was beneath her. I started preparing the exit ramp for myself around then. New email address. Separate phone plan on a cheap burner I kept in my work bag. A small storage unit across town where I began moving things I cared about: my grandfather's letters, my mum's recipe cards, the watch she'd laughed at. Nothing big. Nothing she'd notice missing. I opened the cash buyer's condo in cash. A 1-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood she'd never set foot in. I told the realtor I was purchasing for an aging aunt. He didn't ask questions. I closed in 30 days. She never saw the keys. Year 4, she started to feel the squeeze. Restaurants she loved stopped comping her wine. Her favorite boutique owner gave her that tight smile, the one that says your card didn't go through again. She came home angry one night, threw her purse on the counter. I think the economy's affecting luxury brands, she said. I nodded solemnly. Probably. I held her while she cried about how unfair it was. I stroked her hair and whispered that we'd get through it. And in my head I counted the months left until the margin calls became impossible to hide. I didn't hate her then. Not exactly. What I felt was colder. More like watching a beautiful house burn from across the street. Knowing you lit the match, but also knowing the owners had laughed while they poured gasoline on someone else's life. The night the final piece clicked into place, I sat on the balcony alone. She was asleep inside. The city glittered below us, like it always had, like it had when she first brought me up here and said, "This is our view now." I looked at my phone. One notification from the brokerage. Final margin call. 6 figures. Due in 72 hours. I exhaled, long and slow. Then I started drafting the letter I'd never send, the one that explained everything. I didn't need to send it. She'd understand soon enough. I remember the exact night the mask started to slip, not because anything explosive happened, but because nothing did. It was a Thursday, late fall, rain tapping against the floor-to-ceiling windows like impatient fingers. Tori had come home after drinks with her old sorority friends, cheeks flushed, heels clicking across the hardwood like she owned the rhythm of the city. She dropped her coat on the chaise, didn't hang it, just let it fall land, kicked off her boots without looking where they landed. One hit the baseboard, a small scuff I'd have to fix later. She flopped onto the couch beside me, phone already in hand, scrolling through the night's photos. "Look at this lighting," she said, tilting the screen toward me. Her in a black dress that cost more than my first car payment, laughing with people whose names I barely knew. "Everyone keeps saying we should do a couples shoot soon. Like, professional, before we get to domestic." I nodded. "Sounds nice." She glanced over, eyes narrowing just a fraction. "You okay? You've been quiet lately." "Long week," I said. "Numbers don't add up the way they used to." She laughed, light, dismissive. "That's what bonuses are for, right?" I smiled back. The kind of smile you give when someone's joking about a wound they don't know exists. That was when I knew the setup phase had truly begun. Not the flashy part, not the collapse,
Watch, Daniel.
the quiet
This is what you brought back
engineering
from
of
the rubble?
distance.
It's an heirloom,
I started
Tori. The
small,
last thing I
surgical
have.
changes.
It's worthless.
I changed the password on the joint investment portal, told her it was because of some phishing attempt at work, and I'd set up to factor on my phone only for security. She rolled her eyes. "You're so paranoid," but handed over her authenticator app, reset without argument. From then on, every login, every statement, every margin alert came to me alone. I printed the worst of the statements once a month, not the doctored ones I sent her, the real ones, red ink everywhere, negative equity numbers that looked like blood pressure readings during cardiac arrest. I kept them in a locked drawer in the guest room desk, the one she never opened because it was your boring work stuff. I began timing conversations. When she talked about buying a house
You actually
upstate,
thought you could get away
something with
with
a
this?
pool, maybe
Tori,
stables,
stop this.
I'd listen,
Not
nod,
tonight, Daniel.
then gently
Not
steer
tonight.
toward practicality. "We should probably pay down some debt first." She'd pout. I'd kiss her forehead. "Soon." I'd say always soon. She started using her personal cards more. I encouraged it. "Treat yourself." I'd murmur while she browsed. "You work hard." She did. She had a part-time PR consulting gig. Her father set up mostly showing up to events and posting sponsored content. It paid enough for handbags and lunches, not enough for the life she was living. That gap, I filled it, quietly, with credit. Around month 42, I made the first real cut. I stopped contributing to the joint savings entirely. My paycheck went straight to the separate account. I kept the auto transfer visible for the first few months so she wouldn't notice the drop-off. Then I changed it to manual. She never checked. Why would she? The app icon stayed on her home screen, untouched. She began to feel the absence in stages. First, it was small things. "Why don't we go to that new place in Tribeca anymore?" "Because it's $200 a plate and we have bills," I'd say, gently. She'd sigh. "You used to be more fun." Then bigger things. The lease renewal notice came. Rent had gone up 8%. She stared at the email on her laptop one Sunday morning, coffee going cold. "We can't afford this, can we?" "We'll figure it out," I told her. Same 4 words I'd been saying for years. This time they landed differently. She looked at Marie, looked, and I saw the first flicker of something new in her eyes. Not fear yet, suspicion. I didn't rush to reassure her. Instead, I suggested we downsize. "Temporarily," I said. "Just until the market turns." She hated the word downsize. It sounded like failure. She cried that night quiet, angry tears into her pillow. I held her, told her I loved her, told her we were a team, and we were, just not the way she thought. I started moving assets in earnest then. The watch went into a safe deposit box under my mother's maiden name. A few pieces of art we'd bought together, small ones. Nothing she'd miss immediately found. New homes with a discreet dealer downtown. Cash came back in envelopes. I deposited them in increments under reporting thresholds. Old habits from when I was a broke college kid hiding cash tips from my restaurant job. I lined up the new place, not flashy. A modest one-bedroom walk-up in Queens. Fresh paint, decent light, walking distance to the subway. I paid 6 months up front. The landlord didn't ask questions. I told him I was separating and needed something quiet. He nodded like he'd heard it 100 times. I began sleeping lighter, waking at 4, sometimes 3:30, sitting in the dark with my laptop glow turned all the way down. I watched the positions bleed, watched the margin debt climb, watched the numbers turn from warning yellow to emergency red. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow, like I was watching someone else's life end in slow motion. One night she woke up around 5. I heard the sheets move, felt her eyes on me in the dark. Daniel. Yeah. Why are you up? Couldn't sleep. She reached for me. Her hand found my arm, warm against the chill of the room. Come back to bed. I closed the laptop, slid under the covers, let her curl into me like nothing was wrong. She fell asleep with her cheek against my chest. I stared at the ceiling until dawn bled through the blinds. I told myself this was justice. Balance. What she'd taken in public humiliation, I was returning in private erosion. But lying there with her breathing soft against me, I wondered if justice ever really fits inside a marriage, or if it just leaves scorch marks no one else can see. The final setup piece fell into place 3 weeks later. The bank called our bank about the home equity line. Payment was 90 days past due. They were starting foreclosure proceedings on the line itself. I told the rep I'd handle it, thanked her politely, hung up. Then I opened a blank document. I wrote one sentence. I'm sorry it had to end this way. I didn't save it, didn't print it, just let it sit there glowing on the screen for a long minute before I deleted the file. I didn't need apologies anymore. I needed precision. The next morning, I made coffee the way she liked it, oat milk, no foam, 1 sugar. Set it on the counter beside her phone. Kissed the top of her head when she shuffled in, still half asleep. Love you, I said. She smiled, sleepy and automatic. Love you, too. And for the first time in 5 years, the words tasted like metal in my mouth. The morning it all came apart started like any other Tuesday. Grey light leaking through the blinds. Coffee brewing too strong because I'd forgotten to adjust the setting. Tori was already up unusual for her standing at the kitchen island in one of my old t-shirts, scrolling her phone with that little frown she got when something didn't load fast enough. I set her mug down beside her elbow, black with 2 sugars, the way she liked it when she was stressed. She didn't look up, just said, "The bank called again." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely. What did they say? Something about the equity line. They mentioned foreclosure proceedings. She finally met my eyes. Daniel, why didn't you tell me it was this bad? I let the silence stretch just long enough for her to feel it. Then I shrugged one shoulder, casual. I've been trying to handle it. Handle it how? Her voice cracked on the last word. Not anger yet, worry. The kind that still believes there's a fix. I walked over to the dining table, pulled out the chair she usually sat in, and sat down myself, gestured for her to join me. She hesitated, then came, clutching the phone like a lifeline. I opened my laptops, lowly, deliberately, pulled up the real investment portal, the one she hadn't seen in years. No filters, no edited PDFs, just raw red numbers screaming across the screen. She stared, blinked, leaned closer, like maybe the figures would change if she looked harder. "Daniel, what is this?" "This," I said quietly, "is where we are." The total debt figure sat there in bold, $1,472,819 and change. Her breath hitched. "That's impossible. We don't have, we do. We have been for a while." She reached for the trackpad. I didn't stop her, let her scroll, let her see the transaction history, the margin calls, the cash advances, the transfers that never made it back into savings. Her eyes flicked faster and faster, like she was trying to outrun the truth. You said the market would turn. You said it was temporary." I said a lot of things. She looked up at me, then really looked tanned. I watched the realization bloom behind her pupils. Slow at first, then all at once. The color drained from her face so fast, I thought she might faint. "You did this on purpose." I didn't answer right away. I just watched her. Watched the pieces click together in her mind the way they'd clicked in mine 5 years earlier. "You let it happen," she whispered. "You let it all happen." "I didn't let anything," I said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "I guided it. There's a difference." She stood up so fast the chair tipped backward, hit the floor with a crack. "You're lying. This is some kind of mistake. We'll call someone. A lawyer. The bank. There's no we left to fix this, Tori." She froze, hands gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles went white. I kept going, slow and even. "The condo lease is in default. The cars are both leased payments, 3 months behind. Your cards are maxed. Mine too, but mine were always in your name for the bigger limits. The investment account. Negative equity. The brokerage has already started liquidation proceedings.
You actually thought you could
They'll
get away
take
with
whatever's
this.
left after they sell."
Tori,
Her
stop
mouth
this.
opened, closed,
Not tonight, Daniel.
opened again.
Not tonight.
Your parents stopped the allowance 2 years ago. Remember, you told me they said it was time we stood on our own. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I stood up then, walked to the hallway closet, pulled out the small duffel I'd packed 3 nights earlier. Nothing flashy, just clothes. My grandfather's letters, the watch, a few books, the essentials. She followed me, barefoot, voice rising. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I can breathe. You can't just leave." We're married, I echoed. "Right, the same marriage where you laughed at my grandfather's watch in front of 200 people, where you told me loud enough for everyone to hear that I'd never be enough, where you spent every dollar I made and then some, because it was never enough for you either." Her eyes filled. Tears spilled over before she could blink them back. "I didn't mean it like that. I was drunk. It was the wedding." "Everyone was, everyone heard," I said softly, "and I never forgot." She reached for my arm. I stepped back, not violently, just enough. "I loved you," she said. It came out broken. "I still don't." The word came sharper than I intended. I softened it. "Don't say that now." She sank to the floor then, right there in the hallway, knees buckling, the white t-shirt, my t-shirt bunching around her thighs. She looked small, smaller than I'd ever seen her. I crouched in front of her, not to comfort, to make sure she heard every word clearly. I kept the watch. I told her, "You can keep the dress. It's paid off. Everything else, the furniture, the art, the jewelry you posted about, they're coming for it. The marshals will be here by Friday. You might want to pack what you can carry." Her sobs were quiet at first, then louder, raw, the kind that hurt to listen to. I stood up, shouldered the duffel. At the door, I paused, looked back. She was still on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, rocking a little. "One last thing," I said. She looked up through tears. "I never wanted your money. I wanted you to see what it felt like when someone you trusted treated you like you weren't worth much." I turned the knob. "Daniel, please." I didn't look back again. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Outside, the hallway smelled like someone had just baked bread. Normal life happening 3 doors down. I took the elevator to the lobby. The doorman nodded like always. "Morning, Mr. Hayes." "Morning," I said. I stepped into the street. Cold air hit my face, clean, sharp. I walked 3 blocks before I let myself exhale. Then I kept walking. Behind me, in the apartment we used to call home, the woman who once laughed at my poverty was learning slowly, painfully what poor really meant. And for the first time in 5 years, the echo in my head was finally starting to fade. The first week after I left felt like floating in vacuum. No gravity. No sound except the hum of the city and my own breathing. I didn't go straight to the Queen's walk-up. I checked into a mid-range hotel near Grand Central Anonymous. Clean sheets, no memories attached. Paid cash for 3 nights. Slept maybe 4 hours total. Kept waking up reaching for her side of the bed before remembering it wasn't there anymore. I didn't check my phone for messages from her. I'd turned it off the moment the apartment door closed. Let her calls go to voicemail. Let her texts pile up unseen. I knew what they'd say at first. Confusion, pleading, anger, then silence, then maybe rage. I wasn't ready to hear any of it yet. Instead, I walked, a lot, up Fifth Avenue past the stores she used to drag me into, past the restaurants where we'd celebrated anniversaries with wine lists longer than my resume. I didn't go in, just passed by, watched other couples inside laughing, touching hands across white tablecloths. Sand felt nothing, not envy, not regret, just observation, like studying fish behind glass. On day 4, I finally turned the phone on. 317 missed calls, 142 texts, voicemails I didn't listen to. I skimmed the messages instead. The early ones were soft. "Daniel, please come home, we can talk. I'm sorry I didn't understand. I love you." Then they sharpened. "How could you do this to us? You're destroying everything. Answer me then." Desperation. The marshals were here. They took the couch, the dining table, my jewelry box. "Daniel, please." I didn't reply. I archived the thread, turned notifications off, kept the phone on silent. That same afternoon, I met with the bankruptcy attorney I'd quietly retained 6 months earlier. A small office above a deli in Midtown, smelled like pastrami and old paper. He was older than me, late 50s, maybe grey suit, kind eyes behind thick glasses. He didn't judge, just laid out the numbers again, slower this time. "Chapter 7 for you personally," he said. "The debts are mostly in joint names, but since you're walking away from the marital assets, you'll discharge your liability. She'll be left holding the bag unless she files too." And even then, he trailed off. Shrugged. "Luxury debt doesn't forgive easy." I nodded, signed where he pointed. Paid his fee in cash. When I left his office, the sky was the color of wet concrete. I stood on the sidewalk for a long minute, letting rain hit my face. It felt clean. The marshals finished their work by the end of the second week. I heard about it secondhand through a mutual friend who still texted me out of habit. Tori's staying with her cousin in Brooklyn. Place is empty now. She's not okay. I didn't ask for details, didn't need them. I moved into the Queen's apartment on a Saturday morning. No furniture yet. Just a sleeping bag on the floor, a folding chair from the storage unit, and the watch on the windowsill where morning light could touch it. I sat there for hours that first day, watching people on the street below, a mother pushing a stroller, a delivery guy on a bike, an old man walking a small dog. Normal life, boring life. Mine now. I started the new job the following Monday. Lower title than before. Smaller office. But the paycheck cleared and went straight to a new account. No joint anything. No automatic transfers. I ate lunch at my desk, saved money, paid off the few personal debts I'd kept hidden, breathed easier with every zero that disappeared. Tori tried to reach me one more time through email, 3 weeks after I left. Subject line, please read this. I almost deleted it, unread, almost, but I opened it. Daniel, I don't know if you'll even see this. I don't know if you care, but I need to say it. I was cruel that night. I know that now. I was drunk and scared and trying to be someone my family expected me to be. I hurt you in front of everyone because I thought it made me look strong. It didn't. It made me small. I've lost everything. The apartment, the car, the clothes, the life I thought was mine. My parents won't help. They say I made my bed. My friends disappeared when the credit cards stopped working.
It's an heirloom.
I'm
Tori.
sleeping on an air mattress in my cousin's living room. I wear the same 3 outfits because that's all I have left that wasn't repossessed. I keep thinking about the watch, how you smiled when you gave it to me, how I laughed. God, I hate that laugh now. I hear it in my head every night. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to read this. But if you do, I'm sorry. Not because I'm broke, because I broke us. I still love you. Or at least I love who we could have been. Tori, I read it twice. Then I closed the laptop, sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't write back, not because I hated her, because some things can't be answered with words. Some wounds don't close, they just scar over enough to keep moving.
You actually thought you could get away with this.
Months passed,
Tori, stop
seasons
this.
changed.
Not tonight,
Winter
Daniel.
came hard that
Not
year.
Tonight.
I bought a cheap space heater for the apartment. Started running in the mornings along the East River. My body got stronger even as my mind stayed quiet. I heard through the grapevine she'd filed for bankruptcy too, that she'd moved back in with her parents, eventually begrudgingly, that she'd gotten a job at a small PR firm, entry level, nothing glamorous. She stopped posting on social media. The hashtag living large hashtags vanished. Her accounts went dark. One spring afternoon, almost exactly a year after the wedding guy walked past the old building. The doorman was different. I didn't go inside, just stood across the street and looked up at our old windows. Curtains were different. Lights were on. Someone else's life now. I felt a pang, not regret, exactly. More like recognition. That version of me was gone too. The man who smiled while they laughed, who said yes when he should have said enough. I turned away, kept walking. The watch still sits on my nightstand now. I wind it every Sunday. Listen to the soft tick that used to belong to my grandfather. It keeps perfect time. And sometimes, when the city is quiet and the rain taps the window like it did that last night, I let myself remember her laugh, not with anger anymore, just as a sound that once existed, a sound that taught me what I was capable of becoming. I don't miss her, I don't hate her, I just understand. And understanding, I've learned, is the heaviest thing to carry alone. Years pass, quieter than you expect when the storm finally breaks. I'm 41 now. The Queen's Walk Up became permanent. I bought it eventually, when the market dipped just enough and my salary had steadied into something reliable. Nothing fancy, exposed brick. A small balcony where I keep plants that sometimes survive. The watch still sits on the nightstand. I wind it every Sunday morning while the coffee drips. The tick is softer these days, or maybe I've just gotten used to it. I don't date much, not because unbroken therapy helped to unpack some of that, but because trust feels heavier than it used to. When someone new laughs too loud at something small, my stomach still tightens for half a second. Old reflexes. I notice it, name it, let it pass. Most nights I'm content with silence, a book, the city humming outside the window. I heard about Tori in fragments over time, never sought the information. It found me anyway. A former colleague mentioned casual, over beers, that she'd moved to Portland. Something about a fresh start, a smaller PR agency, working with local non-profits now instead of luxury brands. She looks different, he said. Quieter. I nodded. Didn't ask for more. Another time, scrolling through an old mutual friend's profile on a sleepless night, I saw a photo. Group shot at some outdoor market. She was in the background, half turned away, hair shorter, no makeup, holding a paper bag of vegetables like it was the most normal thing in the world. She looked older, not in a bad way, just lived in, real. I stared at the picture longer than I meant to, then closed the app. I didn't feel satisfaction. Didn't feel guilt either. Mostly I felt recognition, like looking at a house you used to live in that's been painted a different color and someone else's curtains are hanging now. Familiar, but no longer yours. The bankruptcy discharged for both of us eventually. Hers took longer, more contested debts, more lawyers her parents eventually hired to try to shield assets. Mine cleared clean. No children, no shared property left to fight over. The courts didn't care about the watch or the laugh or the 5 years of quiet erosion. They just saw numbers. When the final papers came, I signed, filed, moved on. I kept the letter she sent. Not out of sentiment. I folded it into the back of a drawer with my mom's old recipes and a few childhood photos. Sometimes I take it out, read it again. Not to torture myself. To remember that revenge, even when it feels justified, always costs more than the target pays. I lost things too. I lost the ability to believe someone's "I love you" without scanning for the fine print. I lost nights of easy sleep. I lost the version of myself who still thought love could be simple. But I gained other things. I gained mornings where I wake up and the first thought isn't strategy or survival. I gained friends who know the real story and stay anyway. I gained the quiet certainty that I can walk away when something doesn't feel right and mean it. Last month I went back to that ballroom. Not the wedding venue, exactly a different city, different event. A finance conference. They'd rented the same space, same chandeliers, same polished floors. I stood near the entrance during the cocktail hour, glass of water in hand, watching people laugh and network and pose for photos. A woman brushed past me, blonde, elegant, mid-30s maybe. She smiled politely. I smiled back. For a second I thought it was her. Heart kicked once, hard. Then she turned fully and it wasn't. Just someone who carried herself the same way Tori used to. I exhaled, set the glass down, walked out into the night. The air was cool, streetlights haloed in mist. I kept walking until the noise faded behind me. Somewhere in another city, maybe Portland, maybe somewhere else entirely, a woman who once laughed at my poverty is living a smaller life. Maybe she's happy in it. Maybe she's still angry. Maybe she still hears that laugh in her own head the way I sometimes hear it in mine. I don't need to know. What I did wasn't noble. It wasn't clean. It was precise. It was final. And it was mine. I don't regret the plan. I regret that it was ever necessary. But mostly, I just regret that we both had to learn the same lesson the hardest way possible. Some nights I still dream of that ballroom, the spotlight, the velvet box, her laugh ringing off the crystal. In the dream, I don't walk away. I step forward instead, take the watch back gently, close the box. Look at her not with hate, not with love, just with clarity, and say the thing I never said out loud: this is enough. Then I wake up. The room is quiet. The watch ticks softly beside me. I reach over, wind it one more turn, and go back to sleep.